you can start.
Okay, got it. Well, hi again, everyone. And so we've been having these meetings, and we've been having them around the world, either by country. Last 2 weeks, we've done Australia and New Zealand. We had a US chat yesterday. We're trying to zero in on places where there are compassionate communities, just to see what's happening or what individuals show up. Yesterday's meeting was interesting because there was a lot of partners as opposed to just people coming from compassionate communities. And we wanted people to have an opportunity to meet others in their vicinity, but it looks like the two of you know one another, but that doesn't necessarily know, we're putting you on the spot, not because we don't know you. So we're hoping that we'll just do a check-in to see, what's going on with you, what you're interested in, give you a little bit more detail about what's going on with the Charter for Compassion, and introduce you to a few things that we're doing that you might become involved in. So we meet with Patty almost every Monday because she's involved with our social justice team. So you get to be the guinea pig.
That's right.
If you
And
don't
I don't know Myrna. Yeah, this is my first meeting of Myrna.
Okay, great. So why don't you start and give us a little bit of background information on who you are. Obviously, you're from Fayetteville as well. And
yes, well, thank you so much for inviting me. My name is Mirna Ordóñez, and I just recently joined a board for Compassion here in Fayetteville like a month ago. And next week, they're going to actually give me a lunch to formally, introduce me to the organization. I pretty much am a community leader here in Arkansas. My background is business and also Spanish teaching. I did it in the past. I have worked for the community in Arkansas for several years now when I was working at the University of Arkansas as a community liaison for a diversity office right there in the university. I pretty much love community service, community development. Since I was 18 years old, I led community development projects, either as a college student, and then when I graduated, I am originally from Guatemala, and I went back there, worked there for a few years, and did several community development work with a special emphasis in literacy, financial literacy, skills development for women, especially, and children, scholarship programs for children and teenagers as well to complete their school in Guatemala. So I have a lot of diverse things that I have done. And last year, I came back to Arkansas to support an organization called Arkansas Latinas in BC, which is Arkansas Latinas on Bikes. And what this organization is doing is promoting health and cycling here in the Northwest Arkansas community. So I've been helping them by writing grants, setting up all the administrative infrastructure, and helping them, to promote more the organization. So currently I'm the Director of Development and Operations for this organization, but I'm also involved in helping other organizations because I own my own business as well. It's called Mosaico, and what I do is business consulting for nonprofits, for small businesses, for sometimes government agencies. I've done that for 7 years already, and I lead my own business from home. And right now I have like 4 clients, all of them nonprofits. And I'm pretty much helping them in their infrastructure and processes that will help them to advance and grow. So that's pretty much a little bit of my background.
Oh, that's incredible. Where in Guatemala are you from?
Guatemala City, born and
City?
here. Yes, and educated here in Arkansas. I came here and studied at John Brown University. Got my bachelor's and a couple of master's degree in business as well.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in Guatemala, especially during the war, because I was a part of Women for Guatemala, and so we worked with Rigoberta Menchú, and we would go into Guatemala and bring medicine and actually sneak in money as well as medicine, and then sneak out, and really was sneaking out textiles so that we could sell them, so that we could bring money again for medicine and things. So it was,
actually, I know her personally, and I was able to bring her here for Hispanic Heritage Month in 2015. And she came over to visit in Fayetteville, and I spearheaded that whole event at that time.
Please tell her hello.
Oh, that's incredible.
She's, when I was in Chicago at the time, and she spent time at my home. And like you, I brought her to Columbia College, and she received an award from the college. And I'd love to be back in touch with her. So if you would, introduce me again, that would be great. You can just say Women from Guatemala, Chicago. I think hopefully she'll remember.
She is very smart. She remembers everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, for people who don't know, but Rigoberta was the person who introduced to the United Nations the human rights policy for indigenous people. And she won the Nobel Peace Prize. So for her work.
Wow, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. I just got a message, and Denise, hello. We're going to get to you. You're on the spot in a minute. But Lynn was listening in on the conversation, and she said, do you have any connections to textile artists from Guatemala? Because one of the things that we're doing for our gala is to try and promote art from artists, and we're opening a gallery as part of our effort. And we're hoping that it'll catch on so that it might help both the artists become a little more sustainable, as well as ourselves. So if you know anyone or any co-ops, I've kind of lost contact through the last few years with everyone, but if you know someone, that would be fantastic.
Yes, if you want also paintings from local Guatemalan artists, I know people too.
Yeah, and I think that if I could ask Merida to put the link for the page in which we have the gallery, then you can take a look. And we have a letter that we would send out, and it could be sent in Spanish as well.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. It's really good to meet you. Hi, Denise. I think we have, in fact, I believe we were on the same stage at one time.
Yes.
All right, welcome. So we're just doing a check-in and just introducing ourselves to one another, and just catching up and maybe seeing how we can kind of continue our networking adventure here. So why don't you be next?
Okay. Okay. So I joined Compassion, I guess, maybe 5 years ago, and when you sent the email, I'm pretty much the only one on the committee from the email, and so the other, when I sent the registration, no one could meet tonight with short notice, and it's probably about 4 of us on the committee, and we're still trying to figure out which direction to go. We got a new president. After COVID, everything kind of died down, so we haven't done much of anything. We're really, like I said, trying to figure out what we want our focus to be. Our leader is a Guatemalan. He is wanting to like do fundraisers, and everyone is like, I'm too old to do fundraisers, and so the people that are there are like wanting to like back off, and so we're just still trying to figure out a direction of which way to go. A big part of the organization was, and Patty knows, when we were all part of the subgroup, they had the subgroup of the Black Action Collective. I mean, I forget how many names. We went through so many names when that group was a part of it. And so, but once that group kind of separated from that, we pretty much kind of didn't do much. So we haven't done anything since 2019. And we have, I'm kind of speechless because I really don't even know where. I mean, I'm kind of rambling at this point. So we do need ideas, and we need like new blood, and we need like leadership, and we just don't really know what to do at this point. And so, I mean, what are other people doing? I mean, are other groups still doing things across the nation?
Yeah. There's a lot happening, and we'll do maybe a little retrospect of what that is. But I'm glad that you're here. And, you know, as they say about these kinds of calls, the right people are here. So we'll just see what happens. And there are a number of things that we've been doing in hopes that they would provide motivation across the networking of cities and communities and with partners. And, you know, the irony is that Fayetteville has a lot of partners. If I remember correctly, you might have as many as close to 100 partners, organizations and groups that are part. And so that's a very good place to start. But we'll continue with a check-in with Patty, and then maybe an introduction of Merida, and then we'll go.
Yeah.
Okay, Patty, so this is a different
Well, I think,
on things.
Marina, you're the only one that you and I haven't connected. And so I'm so happy to hear that you're in Northwest Arkansas and you live in Fayetteville. Is that right? You live in Fayetteville, Myrna?
Oh, me? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Are you in Fayetteville or Springdale?
No, I live in Fayetteville.
Okay.
Fayetteville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so my connection is that I don't even remember when it was. Three of us started Compassion Fayetteville. Vita Samani, who you probably haven't met, and a young woman named Margot LeMaster, who's now the director of the Northwest Arkansas Economic Council.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you know her by any chance?
No, I haven't.
And Denise, do you know her?
Yes, I met Denise.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, we started and we had a great run. And so I don't know, art exhibits and discussions and projects and things like that. And so what happened for me is that a man named DeAndre Jones approached me to work with him with the Blacks in Fayetteville. Denise, I think we started with what was called Black History Month. That's where it started.
Oh, that's good.
So then it became a part of Compassion Fayetteville. And so we did a lot then. We had panels, we had discussions, we had things like that. And so little by little and lot by lot, that contingency of Compassion Fayetteville, the Black contingency, became, what would we say, Denise? There's a whole story about all of that, and it became very empowered and also very independent and difficult to manage, etc. And so you can see by Denise's smile. I mean, we could talk all night about that. So little by little, in the meantime, I gave up my leadership of Compassion Fayetteville, and Ed and Diane Williams came on board. And before they came on board, it was not a nonprofit, which I was tickled with, because our mayor had started an initiative of having community groups that were not nonprofit, but that were organized so that they could do whatever they wanted to without the constrictions of what it meant to be nonprofit. So it became nonprofit. And those of us that had been in the original formation decided that we would yield and not be on the board. Well, guess what? As we yielded that, we realized we had no power.
Oh,
We
okay.
had no voting power. We had no, we could go to meetings, but that was it. So we all kind of looked at each other and thought, well, okay, it's in good hands.
Mhm.
So a lot of us, like Christy and others, left, and then in comes Ed and Diane, and then in comes Denise and others. And then Ed died. But I think even before he died, Ed and Diane, I think they'd already given up their leadership, right, Denise?
Yes.
Yeah. And so then a woman named Nancy took over, and I have no idea where she is. So that brings us to the present. A short synopsis. And I went into doing the work with the Charter for Compassion and the Black community. But little by little and lot by lot, the Black community didn't need me. At first it was, we had probably about 5 white people and 1 Black or 2 Blacks. Now the whole thing is run, and it is also a nonprofit. So though I'm an ally, I'm not integrally involved there. I'm more involved in the International Charter for Compassion. And so that's me.
Well, thanks, Patty. And then Merida, you can take the floor. Why not?
Okay, thank you. So I'm Merida McCarthy. I'm originally British and I live in Mexico, in Monterrey. Been here for 18 years now. I've been working, I'm program coordinator now for the Charter for the Compassion. I've been here for the last 3 months. And before that, I was working with the Encuentro Mundial de Valores here in Monterrey as well. And I've been involved with Charter for Compassion since 2016, one way or another, since I met Marilyn here in Monterrey. And so now I'm here. I love it.
Good Spanish, by the way.
Yeah,
So,
thanks.
just to give you a little bit of information, especially to the question that Denise asked, things are going well to, not so well, depends on the community. And I think the strength of any community group or initiative around the world is the team at the forefront. So the grassroots team. And, it needs to be a group that, is committed, has a passion for compassion. And, some of the latest things that have been going on is that last year, even though we were at the end of the big flurry of COVID, nonetheless, the cities in California, we have 23 compassionate communities. They banded together and became the first state in the United States to become a compassionate state. We are now doing something very similar with Texas. There are 6 or 7 compassionate communities in Texas. And because of Uvalde and the tragedy of the massacre there, we started to meet and come together to say, what is it that, communities of compassion can do? Because the idea behind a compassionate initiative is really to ask the question, what needs to be done in our community? And
Mhm.
so, it depends on the community. San Antonio, Texas, a number of years ago thought that one of the most important things that it needed to do was to really vet compassion through education. So one of the things that they started with was compassion integrity training, um, and really got their local community trust, which is a group, and a lot of cities have something, it might be named differently, but a community organization that holds the money, the purse strings for a number of different individuals and groups. And they approached them and got money so that every university and high school person who was teaching in San Antonio went through compassion integrity training. And so they continued that for a couple years. Another thing that happened that they got involved with is that we have two other programs that we have vetted through the years for education that involve compassion. One, Merida knows really well because she was involved with the program in Monterrey, and that is Think Equal. And Think Equal is for young children, 3 to 6, and to teach them social emotional learning, kindness, and compassion, as well as emotional intelligence. That program has been really successful. We've introduced it in Mexico, obviously in San Antonio. We also introduced it in Australia. And right now we're working with the national government in Australia because it's been really so important to the learning of children in just one area, which we might call a state. It's a province territory in Victoria in Australia. And so there's a desire now to pull it across all the borders and to have it available throughout Australia. So that's another thing that is happening in Australia, but also in Texas. And then the third program is the legacy program of the Dalai Lama, which is called C-Learning, social emotional learning and ethical learning. And it also has a part of compassion contained within it. And so, that program is much more pronounced in India right now. In fact, it's growing leaps and bounds in India, so that in addition to those programs, we are working with several other programs that we will make available probably either in late fall or early next year. One of them is a variation, or should be a variation, of something called the New 3 Rs, which is a program that started in New York City and moved to the other boroughs in the city. And it is a look at missing pages of history, and primarily missing pages of African-American history. It's a very complicated program insofar as it lasts for a full year. And the idea is that a child comes to the program. It's a Saturday program, but they must bring an adult in their life, a parent, grandparent, a relative, a neighbor, someone who is committed to stay in the program with them for the whole year. That's a big request, but more importantly, the program itself has been going for a number of years, but it's a very expensive program. And if we were to offer it to students and their parents, guardians, we would really have to raise an awful lot of money, because it's $1,750 for the year. And then you have privileges and rights to continue to use all of their materials, their artifacts, as part of the learning process. So we're in discussion with trying to figure out how that is that would happen. But to continue to answer your question, it depends on the city and what the issues are within the context of a city. In Dallas-Fort Worth, the emphasis is on feeding children. And so they have 2 programs a year where they package 1 million meals for children. And that's their primary focus. I mean, they do other things. All these cities do other things, but it seems that, you know, they arrive at a primary area of focus. One of our compassionate cities in California is, and Myrna, you would be interested in this because it's health and wellness. And so their whole program and emphasis is offering programs in that direction. We are, you know, it depends, like, again, I'll go back and take a real fast journey to Australia. We have a Compassionate Australia team, and they pick a theme for the year. And the theme for this year is deep listening, and listening to people whose perspective, culture, and history are different from one another. And so they have devised programs over this year. Starting, the launch will be September 21st on the International Day of Peace. And basically Australia's, as you can imagine, is a huge territory. And there are cities that are on the coast, and there's a lot of emptiness in the middle of the country. And so a lot of their programming is online. There are compassionate cities, they're doing extraordinary things, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But the theme that they have, last year, it was deep dreaming. So what is it that we could be looking towards? What should we be considering in our cities? They had some wonderful people who were involved in that and exploring, like, what would make a city accessible to people? Walking areas, biking areas, a whole new way of looking at landscaping. What would make a community be responsive to one another? And so I remember I spent a couple visits actually in Australia right before the pandemic, and they too are really interested in compassionate healthcare is a really big issue, as well as palliative care, because in so many of the cities there are, as you can imagine, in big cities like Melbourne or Sydney, big apartment complexes, aging population, people not knowing one another. And so one of the things that they did was to offer to medical personnel a lot of training around compassion. And there's a wonderful story that was shared with me by a doctor who had gone through compassionate training. And he said, you know, I did something just a few weeks ago that I would have never done in my life if I hadn't had compassionate training. Said a family brought in their mother, and she was in great distress. She was older and obviously dying. And they brought her into emergency care. I brought her in to the care room. And after examining her, I knew that she didn't have much time to live. And he said to her, what do you want? And she said, I want to go home and I want to die there. I don't want to die here. And so he took a deep breath and he went in to visit with the 2 children. The woman was early 90s, so the children probably were in their early 70s or so. And he said, your mother she's not well. She doesn't have long to live, and she wants to go home. And they refused. I mean, they put up such a fuss. And he said, you know, I mean, think about it. This is her last wish. This is the last request that she's making of you. And I will be there to help you if you need. But, you know, this is a desire on her part. And so they finally agreed. They took her home. She died in 2 days, and she died where she wanted to die. And, you know, he said, before having compassionate training, I would have never done that. I would have taken her up to her hospital room. I would have put her on all kinds of ventilators and given her everything that she needed to prolong her life for a few more weeks. But that's not what she wanted. So, those are the kinds of things that, are happening. In some places, it's different. It could be like, if you can imagine, in India, it's water conservation, it's organic farming that exist in a couple of communities. Education is probably the biggest common area that people have. But on our website, we have listed 21 or so areas that comprise all of the thematic areas that people in compassionate communities are working on. And one of the things that we managed to do was to ask all of the questions we could possibly ask around that issue. Like London, Ontario, Canada is an age-friendly city. They have an aging population, and so their big concern is age-friendly. So we have something that's, goes through all the questions, the categories, so that the people who are in question, like, what should we be doing, don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've tried to provide information and sources that you can rely on. And, I have a feeling, I know in Atlanta, Georgia, and some of the surrounding groups in Georgia, there's a big interest, obviously, in voters registration, as well as actually prison reform and education in prison. And that's primarily because of compassion integrity training, because that organization has been involved in educating in prisons along the way. Same thing in Corpus Christi. The thrust is in prison reform and educating prisoners. So you can quiz me and just see, name the city, and then maybe I'll come up and say, oh, they're doing that. So it's very much, it reflects your community. In some places it's resettlement of refugees. In Canada, in one of the cities, in the Netherlands, in another city. That's basically what they're doing. So they're pulling in all their partners to help with meeting what the needs of the community are. So, if I ask, what are some of the needs in Fayetteville? What would you say?
I mean, homelessness is homelessness, and but I don't know. But even if I say homelessness, I mean, it's not even a situation where I would say that people are homeless because they can't afford anything. It's because you can't find anything. Like there's no place to live. I mean, I had a teacher that was moving here. I mean, she had to pretty much leave her kids behind because there was no place to. She couldn't find anywhere to live.
Mhm.
And so I don't really know how to solve that problem. Patty, what would you? I mean, I just know just being in the public education system. I mean, like I said, food. I mean, I guess feeding children is always an issue. We're always over the summer we're constantly feeding families, and we're feeding. I mean, goodness, probably 10,000. We're probably feeding 10,000 families a day in the summertime. So I would say that's probably always an issue. I definitely would say education. I mean, I went from serving in summer school, I mean, probably 150 kids a summer to over 500 kids a summer now. And so, but I mean, the homelessness issue is a huge issue. I mean, but like I said, I don't know if that's an issue that I can even resolve. I mean, because of compassion.
Yeah, yeah, thank you for that. I mean, there's it sounds almost like as you come back together and regroup, I guess there's a couple suggestions that I might make. One is, you know, let's say that a meeting is called and there are 3 people that are there at the meeting, or 4. And as you look at one another, you say, who is not at the table? Who is not represented here within this group? Is it a matter of age? Is it a matter of race? Is it a matter of people who might live in one area of town versus another area of town? So that, you know, beginning to explore that initial question is really an important one. And then, you know, I think the biggest thing about building a grassroots community is patience, because you have to be in for the long haul. And, you know, I mean, I know Ed was so intent on bringing partners in, but now the time is to reintroduce them to the work of compassion and invite them to the table as well, because you need them as you explore, you know, questions to anything. And our job at the Charter for Compassion is to give you tools. So Merida just put up Housing is a Human Rights series. This is something that we started, I think, 4 weeks ago. Every week we have another program, and we are working with groups that are actually delivering on giving housing to people, but work in some instances work with the houseless people themselves. In other instances, working with local government, and good examples, especially in last week's presentation. All these are archived for you so that you can go back. But last week was really a look at how the federal government could be involved. This is a great time to get money from the federal government because of the passage of some of the COVID acts. And now with the brand new bills that were passed just last week and signed, I think, Monday. So take a look at this series. I mean, one of the things that happens, you're absolutely right, Denise, that, you know, there might not be available housing, but, you know, is there available land? And if there's no available land at all in Fayetteville, do you have a land trust? Do you have in your Department of Construction and Planning a group that could gear you towards available land? Is there a way that the city, like last week, Eugene, Oregon, a very dense community because of the University of Oregon being there, they did a presentation on how they worked with the city to lease the land. And in September, the first Tuesday in September, we're going to have a group from Latin America called Techo. And Techo is a group that builds a different kind of house. It's almost, do you know it, Mirna? Have you heard of Techo? Oh, your mic is off.
Yeah, I kind of heard of them. They build economic houses for people.
Yeah, and the people that build the houses are high school and college students. Mm-hmm. And the company Techo, or the organization, you know, provides the mentorship for building the houses. And in fact, one of our staff people, Felipe, when he was growing up and in high school in Chile, was part of Techo in building houses. And the objective is that the students who build the houses build them alongside people who will be moving into those houses, and they continue to work with those people. But, you know, you're absolutely right. It's a problem of getting land, but in all of these presentations, people have been addressing, how is it that you can, even though you might live in a city that looks as if there's a density and that there's a scarcity of land, that there's still opportunities to get the land and how to work locally with government to do that. So you need a committee. I mean, you're not going to do it with a couple people sitting around talking. You're going to have to find, you know, a group of people who are really interested in this, who are willing to work with local government, work with the Department of Planning and Construction locally to see how this might go. Try and use your partners, and maybe you don't build the house in Fayetteville proper, maybe it's outside the city. It's incredible. We don't realize how much land is controlled by local government. They might own a tract of land, and you know, there's no sign up there saying owned by, you know, this city or that city, but it's still there because, you know, people forfeit on their taxes. The city takes over land. So there's tremendous opportunities there. So I'd invite, you know, if that's one of your issues, then I would invite you to take a look. And Merida has put up where you can find, is that also where the archives are for the, yeah. So for the past 3 or 4 of the sessions. And then this Tuesday, there'll be another one. And we're even planning, because this has been such a successful series, that we more than likely will extend it. Perhaps not right away, because we have six different events planned within the series, because we need a little more time to plan. But that's one thing. And food scarcity, well, you know, I came back from visiting Fayetteville and thought, what a wonderful program that was it Tricycle Farms or yeah. Yeah, that was such an impressive program. And so I don't know, you know, I mean, consider, and I shared this in a newsletter. I live on this road, an unpaved road. And it's so interesting. There's not too many houses here, but one thing that happens, and it has already started, is that, you know, we have a garden, we will have an overabundance of a number of things, and people just put, you know, a little box outside and invite people to take food. And I know that in various communities, that kind of thing just regularly happens. You know, this is another wonderful story of one of our schools in India. And you can only imagine how dense India is. But the school decided that one of their issues, because they started the compassionate community in the school, high school. And so they had several things that they addressed. One was food scarcity. Another one was to present mindfulness education. And then the third one was they created a street play on water and how to conserve water. And they've traveled everywhere with that street play on how to conserve water. But the one on food scarcity, what they did was they worked with the custodian at the school. They got an old refrigerator and they hooked it up outside the school grounds, and they put electricity into it. They took all the food that was left over from their cafeteria and put it in the refrigerator, and people knew if they wanted food, they would come there from 2 to 4. And then what happened was some of the parents who did have extra food at home said, oh, take this and put it in the refrigerator. So that, you know, has become just a regular program at that school, which reminds me we should write that up and put it in our wisdom book. Because, you know, these are little things that happen in one place in the world that can be replicated in other places in the world. So, you know, and if you need help in anyone, and if, you know, if you want Merida or myself or someone else to come to one of your meetings, please feel free to invite us, and we'll be there to kind of help with brainstorming with ideas.
Okay. Well,
But I wanted to show you two things. Patty is already on our map, and there's two parts to this, and I think maybe I don't know if we'll have enough time to do both of you if you're open to doing it. But about Merida said she's been with us for 3 months, so probably 2 months ago we started and introduced this map. It's a map of co-creation, and the idea behind the map is that, you know, you have an interest, you have a passion, you have a program you want advice on, or you have a program you want to share, or you just want to, you know, say, geez, I'm an educator, I want to talk to other educators, or I'm interested in health or well-being, and, you know, who else is out there. And so I'd like to use Denise or Myrna for you know, having you be an example so that we can put you on the map. So which one of you? And then the other one, you can see how to do it. You can go and do it yourself. Are you saying yes, Myrna?
Yes.
Okay. So what's your email address?
It's Myrna, M-I-R-N-A,
Mhm.
at
Wait,
I.
I'm not sure. Wait, yeah, okay, okay.
At I, and then MOSAICO.com.
Okay. Okay, so you are in Arkansas. What's your postal code?
72701.
720.
72701.
Okay. And I think we'll just put your first name there. By the way, you don't have to worry about anyone seeing your email address at all. We don't need to do your phone number. You can come back and say something about yourself, but just because of time, we won't fill that in right now. But here you have what are the 12 sectors of the Charter for Compassion. And so, like, it's asking you, what area are you most interested in, have the most passion for? And you can only pick one primary area. So spirituality, science, relations and peace, media, communication, social and restorative justice, community infrastructure, health and well-being, governance, environment, education, economics and business, or arts and culture. So one primary area and a lot of secondary, as many as you want.
Okay, well, primary, it's economics and business, because
Okay.
that's the background.
Okay. Okay, and caring business, caring economy, compassionate listening, gratitude, leadership, responsibility, symbiotic economy, global solutions.
Caring business, caring economy, gratitude, leadership, responsibility.
Has to be one here.
Yeah.
Oh, just one.
Yeah.
Caring business.
Okay. So now, if you want, you can go back to economics and business and check the others.
Okay.
So we can do that. And no, you didn't say that. Okay. And is there any other area of interest that you, a secondary area of interest?
I would say justice and restoration.
Okay, great. Okay, so restorative justice, prison reform, environmental, human rights, race, refugee rights, equity, diversity, inclusion, and animal rights.
Oh, wow. All equity, diversity, and inclusion,
Okay,
human rights, of course, animal rights.
okay.
Mhm.
Okay, great. So now I'm going to take the liberty of saying that, first of all, I'm going to see if I can move this a little bit, that you've read and you would click there to read what the assessment is, and that you agree with it. And here you're not going to try and bully someone. You're not going to try and make money off of advertising or anything like that. And so now what's going to happen is I just clicked OK, and you should be getting an email right now. And the minute that you get an email, you can accept the email. And then you get a pinpoint on the map.
Okay.
Have you seen the email?
Yes.
Okay, so if you accept, tell me when you accept and I'll refresh, and then hopefully we'll be able to see you on the map.
Denise, you could be doing the same. I put the link in our chat
Okay.
and it will take you to the map so you can register yourself.
Did you accept, Myrna?
I did.
Okay, great. Okay, so I just refreshed and it's going to bring me back to the Seattle area. So it responds to the area in which you are located. Okay, so here we are. And here's Arkansas. And so my guess is that there you are. So you're now on the map with your primary interest and your secondary interest. But here's the magic of the map. So let's go to the filter. And you were most interested in economics and business. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go and just click on economics and business. Look what happens. The map filters out, and it gives us an opportunity to see people who are interested in the same things in which you're interested.
Okay.
So, okay, here's a person, David Mendez Pinto, who I don't know, but he's also interested in a caring economy and economics and business, and he's from the United Kingdom. Here's another person who is, my guess is that they might be from, Germany, I guess. Now, and we can go along here and find other people. Now, the great thing is if there's a little box there that tells you can write in something unique about yourself. And I find that to be really helpful. But as you go through this, you can say, okay, this person looks like somebody I want to talk with. I have an idea. I want to explore that idea, or I have a program that I want to introduce to other people. So as you go through and look at the map, you can select the people that you want to talk with. And so the minute that you select the person up here, you can see send an invitation. And this is the first time that you will be putting in your email address. Nobody, sees your email address on this synopsis here, but you can write and to all the people that you've selected, and you can send them the message and then send off the email invitation to them, and then they can get back to you. And so it's a way of really beginning to bring people back to being able to communicate with one another. Now, the beautiful thing is that, let's just think of Fayetteville as a challenge now. Because if you have 100 partners in Fayetteville, now think about this because it's so exciting that if we can get even 50 of those partners on the map, and if we can get those partners to get people that exist within their own organization, what begins to happen is that you can just zoom in on Fayetteville and find people, maybe even in your own neighborhood, who have the same kind of passion that you have. And so that's why we're trying to have these city and state meetings to get as many people on the map as possible. And we're really, I don't know if I'm going to be able to follow through on my promise that I made to myself of doing several of these a week. But that's the intention, is to try and get as many people on that map so we can reach a tipping point. So if, for example, you're interested in, like missing pages of Latin American history, like, here's a woman like Rigoberta Menchú, who introduced, to the United Nations, the human rights for Indigenous people. How many people know her? Why did that happen? How many people remember within our lifetime, there was an incredible civil war in Guatemala? How many people died? How many people think that the Mayans were a lost civilization when indeed they're still real? So, that's the kind of thing that, and we're trying to do this, and we will do this within the next couple, I hope, weeks, that we're going to have a similar map for students. And we want students to connect. A student from the highlands of Guatemala talking with someone from the highlands of Kilimanjaro, and having that kind of opportunity to talk about the shared life that they have. Doesn't matter about the language. There's Google Translate. It works. It doesn't work perfectly, but it's there, and students will figure it out in order to communicate with one another. And so another thing that you might want to be aware of, that on September 11th and 12th, we're going to have a student summit. And we're inviting students from all over in a process called Open Space Technology. So it'll be for 2 days, 2 hours each day, where students just come together and have an opportunity to create with one another in conversation, ideas, programming, projects, any kind of shared existence that's happening in their own community with other communities. So that's something that you can introduce to your local community. And, I keep threatening to myself that I need to do this, that, we have within my community here in the place that I live, there's 90 people. And so, I want to get all 90 people on the map. I want to know who they are, because I'm not going to go knock on people's doors, but that's kind of the area that we're waiting for. Oh my gosh, it's time too. Thank you, Patty. I'm sorry. Yes, please. Oh, I understand if you have to leave. You're saying goodbye, or you want to say something?
I just want to say thank you. And Myrna, glad to meet you. Denise, be checking in with you about when we can get together. And it was great. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for coming. And Denise and Myrna, anything that you want, let us know. And especially as you move forward in that meeting, if you want to explore, just ideas before the meeting or after the meeting, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you for coming, and we'll make certain that we get out this recording to the other 6 people who signed up and didn't make it.
It will be tomorrow, on Friday the 5th. Okay.
Take care, both of you.
All
Oh,
right.
don't forget about Rigoberta.
Yes, I will. I'll okay.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye-bye.